Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar today, which is Freedom of Information Acts and Automating the Records Request Process. We're going to talk about reducing processing times, tracking requests, and satisfying all the deadlines that comes with this process. First, I just want to go through some housekeeping notes. This webinar is being recorded. Everyone who registered for the webinar will receive a follow-up email later today with a link to the recording. You can rewatch the webinar or share it with colleagues who may be interested in this topic. This is also helpful if you need to leave early or take care of something in your department, which we know can happen. If you have questions, you can enter them in the questions box. I will be monitoring that box. Most likely we'll wait to the end to go through the questions, but it's possible that I might interrupt Liz to pose a question to her while she's presenting. And just a reminder that this session is not for CEUs or other educational credits. All right, Liz, so this is our presenters today. It's myself doing the little hosting job here, and Liz Mistretta, who's going to run through the session for us. And while we're waiting for people to come on, and there's other people getting their audio connected, just want to briefly touch upon who we are. You may have seen this session promoted by either ICC Community Development, General Code, or the International Code Council. We're all part of the same organization, and we're always here to serve you. Community development is known for Laserfish, our content management and process automation software, which you'll see in the session. We also have Municity, our e-permitting and code enforcement software. And then there's General Code, which is very well known for codification. E-Code 360 houses codified laws and municipal information in one convenient location for access from anywhere. And MapLink helps constituents and municipal staff get quick answers to the most commonly asked zoning questions for properties within your community. Then there's the International Code Council, whose mission is to provide the information, tools, and resources that members rely on, building professionals turn to, and the public trusts. They offer Digital Codes Premium, which provides complete digital toolkit that code officials can use to access management and share building codes and standards anywhere. And now we are partnered with ArchiStar for AI pre-checks that reduce permit approval times, increase the quality of submissions, and enable transparent compliance reporting. Now, we have been part of the same company, ICC, for years, but we are now more closely aligned under the name ICC Innovation, a new innovation bringing together powerful digital solutions for professional development, community growth, and code compliance. We're a company with digital tools that break down silos within our clients' organizations, so it is only right that we break down the silos within our own. In doing so, we are creating an ecosystem of all these products. We've built integrations between these products, so your e-code is accessible within Municity, and Municity interacts with Laserfish, and Digital Codes Premium interacts with ArchiStar and Municity. All right, so it looks like everyone who's been trying to join us now is here, so we'll move on. Many of you have heard about this webinar during Sunshine Week, which is a time when organizations highlight the importance of freedom of information access to records. To talk about that more and to bring us through the rest of today's session is Liz Mistretta, who has over 20 years of experience with records management and government records. So Liz, I want to hand it off to you now.
Well, thank you, James, and I appreciate your time, everybody, today joining us regarding freedom of information and how we're going to modernize it today. So, let's talk a little bit about Sunshine Week. Sunshine Week was, I guess, manifested basically to educate the public and journalists, lawmakers, others in the United States, both in the states and in the federal government, about sharing information and transparency. So Sunshine Week occurs each year in mid-March, and that was done purposely because James Madison's birthday is mid-March. It's actually mid-March 16th. And James Madison was a driving force behind the Constitutional Convention of 1787. And he did the first presentation and the first version of the Bill of Rights to Congress. So he also was the fourth president of the United States, of course. So this is to commemorate him and his ideals regarding transparency. So Sunshine Week is based on the idea of open government and public oversight. So activities occur during the week. You'll hear about things, but they're geared to engaging the government, journalists, editors, other relevant stakeholders and citizens, basically to share the idealism of transparency of the government being essential to the democracy. So when governments are transparent, the thought is that their actions, so when the government is transparent, the thought is that their actions allow access, and their actions allow access to information. It builds public trust and acceptance of the government. So also people are less likely, in theory, to band together and undermine the effectiveness of government if we are sharing information. So by allowing information to flow freely in both directions, so both from the citizen to the government and from the government to the citizen, we can get feedback and constructive criticism on failures, but also feedback on what is effective. And it makes it more transparent, allows equitability, equitable distribution of public resources, and reduces the cost of governance. So that's what the ideal is of Sunshine Week. So what's the foundation of FOIA laws? So the Freedom of Information Act, actually it has been around since 1967, and it's a federal act, and it provided the public the right to request access to records from any federal agency. So that's how it all started. Since that time, each state, all 50, have implemented their own public record laws, which define how records are recorded and how we share them with the public. So from state to state, there are differences on how public records are recorded, retained, and shared. But there are some key things that are fundamental to all Freedom of Information laws, right? The government info belongs to the public. That's the idea. Citizens have the legal right to access records created and held by the government. That's the thought. There are procedures to request and provide resources and records. There's timelines and deadlines associated to every law, and not everything is accessible, right? So we know that some things are accessible, some things may not be. So just to share with you just how different when we're talking about freedom of information, we say FOIA as a federal word, but each state, and you can see here just a short list of some of the states, everybody calls it a little differently. So I want you to understand that we have 31 states registered for this webinar today, and each, several of them call things all different things. So we have the Freedom of Information Act. So many states actually follow the federal, but then there's things like public records requests, Uniform Information Protection Act, that's Hawaii. You have California with the Public Records Act, and Alaska and Idaho. So you can see there that there's varying names for the same thing. They have different laws, just like we just spoke about. They have different mandates or things like that, but the foundation of all of those laws and all of those names for those laws is the same: to share information with the public. So modernizing FOIA requests and responses. So this is kind of getting into where we are. So we've kind of talked about FOIA, we've talked about Sunshine Week. Now, how do we make FOIA accessible, streamlined, easier to process, easier to provide. I work with municipal governments daily, and whenever we talk about freedom of information laws, right to know, wherever I am, I had a clerk last week from Maryland share with me that it took a week's time to answer one of her FOIA requests recently. So you can just imagine, I imagine the amount of time and energy that goes into these FOIA requests and for the fulfillment of those requests. So how do we modernize them? So there are things that we can do, specifically with technology. So technology has become essential in how government and organizations respond to the freedom of information FOIA requests, and it improves, hopefully, speed, accuracy, transparency, and compliance, right? So we want to be able to know that we're providing all the records that we have. We want to do it quickly. We want to make it transparent to everyone that we are providing all the records, and we want to make sure we have them all. It's very hard to know if you have them all, right? So there are things we can do. First is a digital records management system. So what we call a content management system, or an EDMS. You will see many acronyms for what is a document management system, right? So they can store emails, PDFs, any kind of Word documents, things like that, TIFF images, reports and databases in searchable formats. They have indexing that's associated with them so that we can help with retrieval. We can do text searching on them. We can provide fast document retrieval with them. We can reduce the reliance on our paper archives, and we can better see what an audit trail looks like. So I can see all the searches that everybody has done and what you have searched for to find the records to fulfill that request. So it's a little bit, it's very transparent, okay? So things like what we just talked about, like Laserfiche. Laserfiche is a document management system that's very well known and very highly regarded in the government sector. And ICC has worked with Laserfiche as a solution provider for over 25 years. Things like search tools, you know, being able to utilize keywords and Boolean search tools to scan millions of documents, right? To, you know, using advanced analytics to identify relevant files across you know, multiple repositories or cloud system, that can drastically reduce the manual effort for reviewing things, right? Third, redaction. Redaction is a lovely thing, and when you have to do that manually, that is a 3 or 4 step process. You take a piece of paper, you're putting it on a copier, you're making a copy of it, you're redacting it, and then many of my clerks will tell me that they have to copy it again with the redaction on it, so that the citizen actually can't read through that redaction on paper. Well, in a digital interface, you'll be able to redact right on the piece of paper that is an image, and that image is an overlay. That redaction is an overlay on the image, and therefore you are redacting in one step, and it is not harming the actual original document. You also could use AI-powered tools to detect personal identification, like PII, right? So social security numbers, confidential or exempt data, that can all be picked out with AI and then redacted. So you can use redaction tools, and all 3 of these things, the search tools, the redaction, and the storage of documents in the archive, are all things we can do within Laserfiche. Online FOIA request portals. Wouldn't it be nice to have the ability to have an online portal that has the ability for the citizen or the requester to submit a request, but they can also track the request. They can check the status. You could release documents through that portal to that requester. You could have frequently requested records already accessible without having a FOIA request, like a library of freedom of information requests and what was provided as the response. and people could search those, and you would not have to have repeat FOIA requests for the same information. So we love the idea of online intake portals. Also public portals. So just a plain public portal or an interface with a web, on your website potentially, that allows you to open records to citizens for their own research. So things like, Laserfish, we have a public portal, right, that would enable us to expose records that are open record to the citizens, and they can run their own searches on those records and find them, mitigating their need to actually put in a FOIA request if they can answer their own questions. Also, eCode 360. eCode 360 has a pub docs portion that we're able to put in meeting minutes, documents, agendas that are associated with the jurisdiction, and the citizen is able to search in that portal to answer questions and answer what they need. So kind of thinking about public portals as self-service, right? And Municity Connect. Municity also has a public portal, our building planning zoning software, that enables us to have citizens look at their properties, maybe search for what type of permits have been on that property, zoning information about that property, all sorts of things. So public portals are really handy to help to potentially mitigate the idea that I have to fill out a FOIA request. Maybe I can find my own information. And AI, okay, and machine learning. Let's think about that. How do we help with AI? We can do things like auto classify documents. So we know what type of document it is, and AI will classify it into a classification. This is a building permit, and it will put it in the appropriate place. It can use predictive information, and it can use natural language, the language that we speak, to program and request information from documents and search and give us results. So all of that can be done also through Laserfish and some other tools. And this should help with faster triage of complex requests, reduction in workload for staff, and potential cost savings. And finally, there's cloud computing, which everybody is, we've gotten very ingrained in cloud computing over the last specifically 6 years since COVID, and data integrations, right? So we want to make sure that we can enable cross-departmental searches. So we need to support the FOIA processes, but we need to integrate everything together so that we can speak together. So this is, what we're thinking about as far as technology. So ICC supports FOIA with technology, as I have already told you. So we're just going to kind of go quickly through this, but Laserfish, the public portals for Laserfish, eCode 360, which is a public portal for our code group. We have Municity Connect, and there's probably other abilities too to help support the FOIA, but these are the specific. So when we want to streamline, excuse me, 1 second, thank you. So streamlining and automating FOIA requests. So we want to centralize intakes. So these are things that I want you to kind of think about what you want to do to try to modernize the intake and the fulfillment of FOIA. So we want to use a single intake method. So it's much easier for us to have one single process. So it might be having something online, which I'm going to show you something that has a form that you're going to fill out a form, and that person's going to submit that, and it's going to go in. You can also receive that paper, but you would want to scan that in at the office and put it in the same process. So we'll talk about that a little more. Okay, you want like a public facing form. You want to standardize the request as much as possible, which having a standard form that everybody has to utilize, where and digitally we can force them to actually answer the questions. So if you have mandatory fields, they can be forced to answer those mandatory fields to help you fulfill their request. It can set up auto acknowledgements. So we can, once somebody hits the submit button, it can automatically send an acknowledgement that we received the request, and it can give them the statutory information that's specific to your state about how that request is going to be fulfilled. Is it 20 days? Is it 5 days? Is it under review? And you'll get a secondary email after it's reviewed, confirming that we are going to comply, or are we not going to comply? All of those things can happen kind of auto-magically in the background. So this all results in cleaner requests and less back and forth, okay? Laserfish then supports the workflow for internal routing and tracking deadlines and providing alerts to staff and providing status dashboards, and we can automate the responses to every request, and it's all templated responses. So you have no lost requests, you have consistent handling of the responses, and you know right where they are. We can do manual searching for records always, but we can also view sometimes manual searching can create a bottleneck. So for the fulfillment of FOIA requests, especially in paper. So when we have to go to the archive and find the box and then go through the box to find the papers that associate with that request, it can be overwhelming. So we hope that by digitizing your archive, by providing information electronically and providing you the correct tools, you're able to find things much faster and have a more complete retrieval. So other things we look at, again, are the public portal and public documents in eCode that can provide jurisdictions the ability to provide a library to share documents that are requested often for public review. And that bypasses the FOIA request completely. So just send the person to the public portal for review of the documents. It's like a citizen self-serve, what we were talking about earlier, and results in fewer incoming FOIA requests. And wouldn't that be lovely? So when you're looking at Laserfish and some of the tools and records management and document management tools and content management tools, you know, you want to be able to have acknowledgement letters that are templated, classification requests, denials. You want a dashboard that tells me, and I can track performance, and I can identify where the bottlenecks might happen in the process, even if it's electronic. I have a municipality in the southern tier of New York that basically they know, because of this process, that when if the request goes to the chief of police, and it tends to get bottlenecked there. So they have been able to figure out a different method and a different routing so that it no longer gets bottlenecked there, because of course he actually wasn't, you know, maybe the one who should have been answering that request. So so this is all kind of the foundation that we are going to want to look at while we are thinking about modernizing our FOIA process. And all while we're keeping in mind, kind of in the back of your mind, that we want to integrate with your records management policies so that records are under retention schedules, right? So FOIA is a huge behemoth of an issue, right? But it makes it even worse if we do not have good records management policies, because if I could destroy that record, then I should have restricted. So in 2022, if I didn't destroy that record and I kept it, and somebody requests a FOIA request in 2025, if I still have that record, I have to give it to them. If I had destroyed it, I no longer have to provide that information, right? So if I have good records management policies and procedures to help us maintain the level of documents that we should be keeping, then it will limit the amount of things I have to produce to share with this, with citizens or the requesters. So always remember, sometimes it gets lost. People forget about records management, but it can help you support your FOIA requests if we can have a really tight and focused records management program. So what are our benefits? I bet you guys already all know these benefits, but I'm going to just quickly go through them. Hopefully, and I know this is true because I have done this for so many years, less time collecting paper documents, right? Paper documents are time consuming to find, search, retrieve, and a document imaging system with digital documentation and information digitally stored is far quicker to find. You know the work process internally where the FOIA request comes in, you hand it over to another department, that department puts it in a pile and forgets about it. The citizen then calls, or the requester then calls the clerk and asks, what's the status of my FOIA request? And you have to actually get up out of your chair, go to the next department and see where it is, right? So that goes away, and you know where it is, you know what status it is, and you can easily fill in or answer the question for the submitter. They could also, with an electronic, answer their own question if you have like a public portal. Timelines are monitored and reminders are sent. So electronically, we're able to remind you, oh, we only have 5 more days to respond to that FOIA and you haven't done it yet. Reminder, it can have escalation. So we can, maybe the person is out on vacation and it's there, but through escalation, it then gets to somebody else, a manager, who then sees, oh dear, we've got 5 days to answer this. We better reassign this. Can identify where the bottlenecks are. We've talked about that. Everything is templated. And the reason that is kind of interesting thought process is that everyone is getting a standard response. You're not having, one response that looks like one way and one response that looks like another way. Everything is, canned. With that said, you can add things to a canned letter or email to add specific information about your request. So you can always add more specific information, but the foundation is the process is repeatable and you are doing the same thing each time, and each requester is getting the same type of response. So hopefully we're reducing postage, we're reducing time for looking things up, we're providing them with their ability to have some self-service where applicable, and we're mandated information needed for requests. So we are requesting them to fill in a form and we are mandating what they're filling in. So without further ado, I want to just kind of show you what we do and how we handle FOIA requests and how we work with our customers to answer this need. So the first thing that you're seeing here is the initial request. So basically, this would be a public-facing form that the public can fill out. You can reach it from your website. It could be just a simple link on your website that says FOIA request or whatever you call your request, right to know request. And when they open it, they're actually opening something like this. Now it can be specified. You can see this is kind of a demo situation. So you see Laserfiche and you see ICC on it, but it can be made to look just like a form for your community. It can have your seal on it instead of, logos. It can be customized or configured to what you need it to say. But if you can see here, this is an example of different things that we do. So we have categories. So request is related to what kind of category, and if that drop-down box can have a caret in it, could be, a police report. It could be planning or permitting or zoning records. It could be meeting minutes. It could have a whole lot of other types of records that are standard for request, and then also in case nothing fits into that. They can give a description here of what they're looking for. They can tell us what the preferred method of delivery is, and you can see these little red stars. that means that it's mandatory that they put some information in there or answer the question for us. So they give us their information. They can or cannot give us on this form email, but we could make that mandatory, and we get all of this information collected. So then once they submit this information, okay, it comes into somebody at the municipality, and this is a confirmation task. So this is actually somebody, you know, that's maybe creating what we want to say to them, right? So we've looked this over, we've vetted it, and we've determined that we are going to process it, or we're going to reject it or cancel it, and we can write comments and do it. We can send it along to the requester. You can see the requester Cookie Monster here from Sesame Street, and you can see down here, you can print it and put it into the mail, or we can email it if we have the person's email address. You can see up on the top that you have this like other. So other was the code that they requested. So they asked for something that wasn't a normal type of record series, but you can see that there's a long code underneath it. That's how what we use to track all of these scenarios. So we can track it right down to that code matches everything. We can see the request, we can see all the steps that have been, we can see who reviewed it, all sorts of things from that. So maybe we mail the confirmation task, right? So maybe we mailed it out. So the system doesn't know that you put that in the mail. So it does know if you emailed it. So back here, if you emailed it, oops. Sorry guys, I think I went too far. Let's go back here. So if I email it, the system knows it, documents it, can say what time, can timestamp it, we know. If you decide to mail it, we don't know that. So what we've done is we say, okay, when you put it in the mail, drop in a date, make a comment, okay? So it's simple, it's task 2A of this whole thing. Then the next thing is the initial review. So you say you're going to process it, you're putting in, so this is still the reviewer, right? And they can mark anything they need to mark. They can add department assignments. So you can see down here, requesting processing, and it says, you know, I have task assignment number 1. I'm actually giving, and there's down arrows on the side where I can apply this to different departments. This request has to be looked at by the police department, the health department, and the code enforcement. So you can add those tasks. It will go to all 3 of them simultaneously to be reviewed. We can put in special information. We can do all sorts of things to help people answer the requests, okay? This creates a task, you know, for each of the different assignments. If we rejected the task, it would actually create a task that would tell us to send a note with reasons why, and we would compose a letter that was pre-formulated, and we can either mail it or email them the rejection at this point too. So then our 4th thing is the department task. So that each department might get their task. They're going to look at their task. We can assign up to 20 departments to review a FOIA request at the same time. They can add their records right to this form, so they can isolate records, tell us these are the ones that they need to attach. They can scan records if there's still some things in paper. They can scan them and attach them right to this form. And then we can actually talk about fees and collect fees for all of this. We can have determinations. So over here, we can actually say we found them, or we found no records in this department regarding this situation. And then we can have some optional things that we can do. So we can make some specific things to your process. This is a flexible process. So this is just one of an example of how we have worked with other municipalities, but you can have this really work in your workflow any way you'd like. So then we may have the initial, so this might go back after all of the individual departments find their documents, they attach it, this goes back for the initial response review. So it's being reviewed. It could be the attorney, it could be the clerk, it could be your Freedom of Information officer, whomever you have that is responsible for making sure that you have all the records and that you are reviewing them, that they may redact them, they can do all sorts of things. They're reviewing the records, they can put in costs, dates, amounts that are owed, they can ask different information here. And then once that goes out, you can see there is a redaction step for this one. So at this point, maybe we've redacted something, but so this individual thing example allows us to force you to say, I had redacted it or I did not need to redact it. Some municipalities want us to put that on there so that it forces everyone to acknowledge whether or not they redacted or not. Some municipalities don't need that. It's an optional scenario, but it's something that if your municipality wanted to make sure that you have documented that they were reviewed for redaction, that can happen at this step. And then finally, there's a final review step where we get everything together, make sure we have everything done, everything is redacted, we're happy, we've added any optional language or verbiage to the delivery letter down here in this bottom part, and then voila, we send it, and it's gone to, well, I skipped 2 steps. So if they owe money, they would get an email saying that they owe $2. So for this example, we are going to charge them $2. We can either mail that invoice to them, or we can email it. What happens then is they pay it. Oh, well, first we mail it. So that the paper one is, if you mail it, you're going to have the same thing you had earlier in the steps. So if you've mailed something, we're going to document the date you mailed it and any comments about it. But once it's paid, we're going to document that it was paid. Okay, so they paid their $2 and we're all set. We can hit the button, and then what happens is we get a task to go ahead and email the information or send the information to the person. So it's all encapsulated, everything happens within the system, and then ultimately it ends in Laserfiche, so you have an archive of it. So this is where the library comes into handy, where you are able to have a library now of information, and you've already vetted it, it's already redacted, everything is there, and you're able then to make a FOIA library on your public portals that enables people to search and find their own things and can see what everybody else has requested in the past and what those replies were. So this is how Laserfiche works. I want to kind of make you think. That was an example. This is how we do it. This is called a crafted solution. So Laserfiche, so ICC has been doing this a long time. We have programmers and technologists and developers on staff, and they build these to meet the needs of our municipal clients and all of our clients. So what happens is this becomes something that's repeatable with all of our different municipalities. And of course, things are adjusted. Workflow might not be the exact same for every municipality, different departments, different things. Anything that was a drop down in here can be customized to your municipality. Anything that steps could be removed, we could add additional steps depending on what your workflow is. But the idea is to encapsulate it in a digital atmosphere so that you're able to monitor it, you're able to see it at all times, we're able to share it with people electronically, and we hopefully streamline and make it more efficient for you to answer and source your documents, your fulfillment of the documents, and ultimately make everyone happier as far as the citizens and the requesters, and you as the staff members. So, does anyone have any questions about what you've seen? Let me see here.
Liz, thank you so much for running through this. This was great. We do have a couple questions that came in.
Great.
Yep. So one is from Jessica. She asked, and I answered it, and I'm going to see if I gave her the right answer.
You give the right answer?
Yeah. So she asked, if the public portal is open, do we have to complete records requests if the self-service is there?
No. So you
All
can
right, I answered correctly. All right, good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the whole beauty of some of it's trying to share some of the records that you're certain don't need to be redacted or anything. By sharing those records, all you have to do is guide them and I should say, in theory, any states I have worked with, and I have, worked with many, you should be able to just guide them to where the records are. You just tell them, oh, they're available on the website, help yourself. So I will say that I don't know every law for all 50 states, so but I'm pretty up on the federal law too. And no, that's the whole beauty of opening the public records.
Perfect. All right. So the answer I gave was correct.
Yes,
and Jessica asked another question as well. This was a couple minutes ago. She said, can you share the sample form with all the fields? So I'm not sure, I can't remember exactly what part you were talking about with that.
I can't. So would you like me to send you like a sample form, like by email? I can do that. Yeah, sure, we can. I can also, I mean, I know if you want to give me just a second, like I'm sorry, I'm going to lower things here for a second.
And just to clarify, Jessica was talking about the Laserfish form, and it looks like you are going to pop over into Laserfish and open it up is what I'm guessing you're going to do.
Well, actually, I was going to do, I was going to show, and I meant to get this open.
Oh, an actual existing client?
Yeah, an actual municipality. I meant to open this up earlier, and of course, Liz forgot. So now I'm looking for where I'm supposed to be. See, this is what happens when I'm not, didn't open up my.
Well, you know what, while you're doing your searching around, I'm going to ask another question that came in, which I think you can answer pretty easily. Sure. What options do you recommend for people who don't like technology or are not technology literate, say like older residents or something like that?
So, I feel like, so we get that question a lot, and I think it's a really good question. So we have, obviously a diverse, canvas of people. I understand that not everyone is going to be able to submit online this form. So this is an example of a Freedom of Information Law request, okay, for the municipality, and you're seeing right now. Excuse me, I'll open it back up. If they were to submit that FOIA request online, like many would be able to, you would get all the information. Now, they could still put a paper request through to you. And for me, what I would do is, absolutely, of course, there's going to be people that maybe don't have access to the internet, don't have access to a tool like a computer or something that is able to handle putting this information in. So we expect some things to come in paper-wise, and those things would come in paper, and then you would actually scan that document into Laserfiche and kick off the same exact processes electronically from that paper version. So we understand it can't be 100% right today, but more and more every day it gets closer, right? You know, I started 25 years ago. You know, we were lucky if we had 25% of the people. I mean, I went into clerks' offices where they didn't even have a computer yet 25 years ago on their own desks, right? So now things, you know, are changing, evolving. Obviously, COVID accelerated that slightly. I will say that my 78-year-old mother uses her computer every day and uses her iPad like a religion. So you know, and my 84-year-old mother-in-law has decided to only speak to me through text messaging, which drives me insane. But for you guys, you know, so they are, it's a wonder how the older generations are actually embracing technology, and I see it every day. So I do know it's a challenge, though. It isn't you know, a panacea that everything is going to be perfect, but if you can get 80% of everybody to use the electronic means, and then you only have to, you know, it just reduces what you need to do every day.
Right, and I think we've had a couple of clients that set up like a kiosk computer right in their office, right? So that they could just, you know, do it that way.
Exactly. So like in Dover, New York, you can see they actually have, if you search on their website, they have the Freedom of Information request. They can actually, this is a live form, you can fill in all your information, submit it. You have a method of delivery, records request, and it follows the process just like you saw. So there is this is kind of a plain form, honestly. I actually find it needs a seal and some color and some prettiness to it, which can definitely happen. But was it Jessica? Did you say?
Yes.
We can send out, we can send out something like this so you can see it. But if you look at Town of Dover, there's a good example of what they collect. All right.
And we had another question from Jessica as well.
Great.
She asked, the challenge we have is when the form is completed, they often aren't specific enough in the request. How do you navigate getting enough information to complete the request without going back and forth, either with the form or with the online submission request option?
Yeah, so we try to help them along a little bit. So maybe giving them some standard things that they might be asking for. For example, we try to make sure that we give them the down carrot that gives them the departments, maybe to try to force them to think about what departments that they need this request fulfilled from. We then give them maybe a question where we actually give them some of the standard things that they request, like standard types of things that they request, and they can choose from that list instead of trying to. So the thing that we need to remember is that citizens tend not to speak our language, right? So they don't not only not speak technical language, but they might not speak governmental language. So the records that we're looking for them under record retention rules. We call them certain things. The citizens don't know that. So what we try to do is give them some information like pre-filled out. You know, here's the top 10 things in that department that are asked for. Give me that information. And then we give them that comment box and we say, you know, we can direct them with directions right there that say, you need to be very specific on what type of information you need in this, and this comment box gives you that further information. It's not going to eliminate everything from somebody, but we do the best we can to try to drive them to answering the questions that we need so that we can fulfill the request.
All right. And Elizabeth just asked a question that I can answer. She said, I will like to have all the webinars? How can I access them? I'm actually going to be sending a follow-up email, Elizabeth, with more information and links that you'll be able to access. And Jessica said, thank you. And somebody else wrote, do you wait for review by attorney or still send completion of a request before a review? I'm going to guess you wait for attorney review, but Liz, I'll let you answer that one.
So it depends what type of record it is, but we can determine, based on what type of record it is, it can go to different steps as the review. So sometimes a municipality will have a step where it goes to the attorney for review. Sometimes all FOIA requests go to the attorney for review. Sometimes only some of them, depending on, if it's a police situation or something like that, they'll put it through the attorney. But if it's meeting minutes, you're not going to put it necessarily through the attorney. So it can actually go in two different directions depending on what type of fulfillment it is. So I hope that answered your question, but it can do both. So it will really be about how your workflow is and what your comfort level is and who's doing the review. As I said, while I was reviewing it a little bit, it can go to the attorney, but it can also go to a Freedom of Information officer. It can go to the clerk. Specifically, a lot of clerks handle a lot of this. And then, as far as redaction goes, that can happen at any of those three steps also. So it's pretty flexible.
All right. That looks like that might be it for the questions coming in. I'll give it just a couple more seconds. I know Liz has a hard stop that she's got to get to something else right after this. So I think we're going to be able to give you some time back into everyone's day here. And thank you so much for joining. As I said, I'll be following up with an email with some additional links and everything like that. So thank you, everybody.
Feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to answer questions. Records management is my thing. So please, please ask questions. If you need anything, I think our information is probably on the invite. And James, if James's information is there, his email, just please send it to him and he'll forward it to me.
Yep, and you know what, Liz, I can include your email address in the follow-up email as well, so people can reach out to you.
I appreciate that. So thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.